Hello everyone, it's Claire. Welcome in your new podcast, Puzzling Perspective from Puzzle Society. I'm excited to interview our puzzle member, but also all the one who contributed to the success that we have now and share it to all our industry. Let's share knowledge to grow again. In this episode, I'm interviewing the founder and CEO of 8 Great Games LLC. This studio is not only known by being published by the biggest publisher as Voodoo, it's also well known for its practice of developing and publishing games in 60 days. Let's learn and grow again. Hello everyone. Today I'm super excited. We are launching the new podcast Puzzle Society with Faisal Nazir. Thank you beginning this podcast, Faisal. I'm so happy to have you. Can you tell us a bit more about who you are, what you are doing in the games of puzzle?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. I'm Faisal from 8 Great Games. I'm the founder and CEO. So we make a puzzle game in certain given genres. We are trying to bring a lot of innovation in those genres because they are very stale and like super saturated with without any innovation. So we're really trying to like bring new concepts, but we are taking the existing gameplays and trying to give it a fresh new twist to them. That's what we are doing at the moment, and excited to be here.
Really excited to have you. I'm really excited also you joined the society not long ago. So I feel really lucky, and I wrote a few questions because as you said, the puzzle is saturated, and I think like it really began a science to do, a hit game. So can you walk us through the process your company use usually for generated new game concept within exciting and saturated genre like puzzle, for instance?
Yeah. So in puzzle, there are a lot of subgenres of the puzzle, right? So what we do is we narrow them down. So we keep a list of the ideas we want to innovate on. So, for example, bubble shooters, match three, solitaire. So we have a list of like 5, 6 genres which are proven to work over the course of the lifetime of the App Store, but they are not showing a lot of innovation. So we thought, okay, we can improve those genres by adding twist to the gameplay and also twist on the marketability side of these. Both are equally important. So yeah, so having a list of the genres to narrow down and then finding opportunities, and plus we do using a lot of generative AI to come up with really cool twists on those concepts. And yeah, that's how we are doing, basically narrowing it down and then finding the opportunity in those and then twisting the gameplays. There are certain things you can twist in a gameplay, like you can give another dimension to a game, like if it's 2D, you bring it into 3D. If it's a static game, you add a physics to it. So there is another way of interacting with the game. You can change the setting, the world, the story, the context in which the game is played, and then all of a sudden you have all new rules to play with. But again, the main thing here is like keeping all the strong points of the retention side, the monetization side, and yet giving it a fresh new life, right? Like giving it something new that it would feel different to the players, but underneath all the proven concepts are still there. So yeah, that's how we are doing.
I love this, and I think you have a lot of things that you mentioned, making twists, using AI, which are two things that I'm really passionate about. Do you have one example of one game where you did a twist? What was this twist, and where you actually used the AI, and how did you use AI?
Yeah. So one of our game is called Pool Match. So it was based on a triple match genre. Lately it's blown up, and a lot of games did well in that genre. But the thing about that genre was it's like static screen, and many of these games were like in 2D with some layers on top. So what we thought okay, first we would like to add dimension to it. So we actually made it in totally in 3D. The second thing we wanted to do is we wanted to add physics to it. So now there were a lot of characters within water, And if you eliminate one of the character from the pool, rest of the level automatically adjusts because the entire level is within physics. So the physics is affecting the gameplay. These are like two things we did. Now, how we got to that idea, I actually I'm kind of a visual person. So what I like to do is I like to take existing games, right? And then I go to tools like ChatGPT or whatever your favorite tool is. And then I go and I tell the AI to create like variations of it. Like, and AI just randomly creates random things. Most of the time, it's very bad, but sometimes you see some visual and you're like, oh, it's like that moment, and you get like that spark. So I'm a visual person. So whenever I see something visual, my brain automatically assigns it mechanics. Like that's just how I my head works. So that's how I came up with that idea. So basically, the most powerful thing with the AI is it's not like actually creating the images, but rather creating the variations of it, because once you create something totally new, then the likelihood of that thing working is very low. But if it's a variation, or the evolution of that thing, that this is where you have like a higher chance of making that thing work, because it's based on proven things, right? Proven mechanics, proven visuals, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so this is where the generative AI helped us.
Really interesting, and I love the fact that you take it also to risk in games and also visuals. Do you see some audiences in the world more receptive to it than some other, or you don't really see it? Like for instance, you see United States AI risking work really well, but you see in India it's not working at all, or not really?
Yeah, so the AI work, we do not include it within the game. We keep it in the ideation phase for inspiration. We do not include it in the actual build. So yeah, so whatever we create generally works in like states or any other country, honestly.
Nice. I love this. And you also, before the meeting, spoke to me about a really impressive process that you have, which is a 60 days development process for puzzle. I come from, those big EAP puzzle games, which who are super expensive to develop and so on. So I'm super excited to learn more about it. Can you tell us more about this development process that you taught a bit about?
Yeah, so basically we like to develop our games, test our games, and the ideation of those games to complete within 60 days. So we have very fixed timelines. So we give ourselves, okay, like 1 week, we want to come up with like 15, 20 ideas. And then we shortlist 1 or 2 ideas to make out of that batch. Um, because we give ourselves that like limited time, our brain is like, okay, we gotta get some ideas out. If we give ourselves, okay, we have 6 months to like come up with idea, then nothing gonna work. Honest. So yeah, so we give ourselves very short time. So once we have that idea, we actually like to get like a quick mechanic done within like a week or so, just to see if that idea can be transformed into an actual game, because not all ideas can be transformed into a game. So at that stage, if we see there is not many restriction with the mechanic, some ideas have restriction with the variety of the level design, or just like the implications of performance on mobile devices. So if we see that if the idea seems feasible to build, we continue with it, or we kill it at that moment, go to step one, come up with a bunch of new ideas, and then the cycle continues. But within that 60-day frame, we also like to launch the game and test it on like a single territory like US, and quickly get our results, because we have that super lean build. So we look at the early metrics like day one retention, playtime, day three retention, just to see if this game is worth working on, right? We don't see like day 30 from our first build, because we have built our game in a very short span of time. We have limited amount of content. So yeah, we can complete that test within like a week of ad campaign, and then get results in 2 weeks. So yeah, that's how we complete within 60 days.
I love it. And so you touch base a bit on the retention phase. Do you also have a monetization phase, or you do it the same time as the retention phase?
No, we do not include monetization from the first version. We just test the engagement. We want to see like how the engagement is, because a monetization can at the same time destroy the metrics you don't know, right? So
Well,
we want
well
to see like,
understood.
yeah, we
I
want to
mean,
see the,
is it EAP or more ads-based game?
yeah. So our puzzles are more like hybrid. So we do implement both things if the game reaches further stages of like iterations.
Got you. So that's why it can actually also kill your retention.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really interesting, and I think that's kind of really, matching, like the pace of the market as well. There is a lot of new way of testing things. I think this one is one of the best. 60 days at least. What you can focus on. But when something is not working, what are you doing? Are you iterating on the idea, or more you will, like go back and do something totally new?
Yeah, so we have like a certain benchmarks we want to hit, right? So if our first test KPIs are very close to those marks, then we're like, okay, we can do iteration and make this thing work. If it's way off, right, then it's better to move on to new idea. By the way, just one thing about this approach, there's no wrong or right approach. It's just the kind of studio we are, right? So we are not venture-backed studio, right? So we don't have like big burn rate to, spend like 2 year developing just one game and put all of our eggs in one basket. So we are like a publisher funded studio, right? We work with Voodoo. So in this setup, we are
Which
actually, yeah. So in this setup, we kind of have to do like this lean development. So yeah, it depends on what kind of studio you are. There's nothing wrong with 2 year of soft launching or 5 years soft launching, right? There's nothing wrong with it, because you're giving your idea a lot of chances if you are launching your game for longer period of time in a soft launch. But if you're testing your game very rapidly, you might miss on a really good idea, right? Because that idea might need like 2 3 iterations to really get those really nice KPIs. But of course, we are going for a lean methodology. We have to kill if something is not good in early phase. So it's just different approaches, right, based on this studio. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a growth hacker methodology. I think it's my favorite one. I think, also like there is a lot of good results that we saw, from Gameloft with Sniper Champion that is now, signed by Miniclip. That was also hybrid casual. Now Voodoo is doing this, Oma, and so on. So I think the way you are developing now is really like the way to go. Is it a way that the publisher gave to you, or yourself you decided because you're a self-funded studio you are going to operate that way?
Yeah, so our past experience is from hyper casual. So their timelines are very short. People were making like a game in a week, right? So the developers, those games were absolute shit, to be honest. Sorry for cursing. So yeah, so those guys, the team have actually experience of rapid prototyping a lot of games. So they are bringing that experience to like new market. Obviously, hyper casual is no longer viable in today's space, but I really like actually casual, because these are nicer games, nicer for user experience. You are not showing ad every 30 seconds. These are nice games to make. These are much higher quality games to make, but these games can still be made in a very rapid pace with a lot of with the quite a good speed actually. So yeah, so it's coming from publisher plus the kind of studio we are. So it's like combination of both things.
Definitely. And lucky you, I had a chance to work on a lot of puzzle games, pre-production. And the thing that I always faced is how do we prioritize, and even on the long, product life cycle. So I got a question for you. How do you prioritize feature and elements during the development phase in 60 days to meet both deadline and player expectation?
Yeah, so yeah, that's quite a challenging thing actually for this kind of methodology. But we play a lot of games, and we identify like what are like the bare minimums people are used to expect in these kind of games. So for example, if it's a match 3, right, we all expect these to have like all the boosters, right? All the possible combination it have. It's part of the core mechanic, right? So if that's like the bare minimum thing we need to do, we will do it, right? But if we think about like the meta of the game, the event, the challenges, those kind of meta levels, we generally do not add. We just keep the core gameplay, because core gameplay is super important. Doesn't matter how much meta you have, if core is not strong, users are just not going to engage. And the whole point of meta is to make the user re-engage with that core. So yes, core mechanic is super important without adding like the noise around it, because we want to see if the code is interesting, then we develop. We do make it a lot. We do add a lot of meta to it if we see like the core is solid. So yeah, so just core mechanics, no extra bluff.
Yes, that's actually, like having fun, like the mechanics is the thing, that you really get into it. Even Royal Match, I think they get it, by a really good level balancing that is in the core mechanic, which at the end of the day is really what makes you want to play again. So I totally agree with you. Okay, so now share to us like the tips of your studio. Can you share any insight or lesson learned from previous games that have gone through this rapid development and testing process?
Yeah, so obviously there are multiple stages. So every stage I can give few tips. So one is in the ideation phase, when we make some idea, obviously we then make it mature, we evolve it, we flesh it out. But what happens is a lot of teams, what they do spend a lot of time on that idea, and they do not start the prototyping or like the early MVP of the game, because once you go into the MVP, things become far more clear. There is a limit to how much you can anticipate from the ideation phase, right? You can go 2 step, 3 step, but then you cannot predict, you cannot make game in your head. So the development need to start, right? So once the development starts, you can adjust your strategies. The idea can morph into something else which you originally had. um, so yeah, so for ideation and the production starting point, I would say just get started, see it, and rapidly develop the code. If the code is fun, it will look very much fun even with just primitive visuals, even at the starting phase. Of course, the nicer visuals the better, but I'm saying in order to check if the something is even worth continue building into a proper game, it's a good idea to just get started and get things done. That's one in terms of starting. Once you are building the game, the most powerful thing I think everybody should focus when it comes to puzzles is just the balancing of the levels. Everything make or break with the level balancing. I mean, you can have a decent level and you will get like okayish KPI. You make a great level, you can get exceptional KPI. That's like how much of a difference it is. Yeah, like levels are super important. Yeah, so balancing levels is extremely important. Yeah, and then the third important thing is taking decisions whether to continue the game or not based on the data. So once you test, into the market, you should base your decisions on the data, right? We love our games, and we get they are our babies, but if users are not enjoying it, then what's the point of making the games, right? So yeah, data will tell. If users are playing, you'll get great play times and retentions. So yeah.
Yes, and I think really often like this stakeholder mapping slash management can be quite hard, especially pre-production, especially when you don't know the future of a game. So, what are your tips regarding this? What metrics and who do you think should take those decisions?
Yeah. So for now, I'm taking these kind of decision in the studio to whether to continue the game or not. But honestly, I have the entire team is aligned on this like concept. If we get certain metrics, we work on the game, and if we don't expect to work on the game. So we have that consensus on this. But the kind of metrics we look for is uh, obviously the best way to look at your metrics is to compare your metrics with the same top games in your genre, so you can see like how close you are to them, and or maybe you're overperforming than them. So that's one way of doing it. If you want kind of a rough estimate, I would say 40 day one retention, around 40-50 minutes of daily playtime. And if you want to go to day seven retention, something like 15% for like early versions of the game. So this is kind of like the, if we are very close to it, we think, okay, that's very interesting of a game. If we are way off, we're like, oh God, maybe we need to make it the game.
And is CPI something that is still looked at or not? Not really.
We do look. So yeah, so CPI, obviously we test in US. So we expect the CPI to be like, there's no fixed number, honestly. It depends if the KPIs are really strong and we see like game engagement is really great, then yeah, CPI can be hard, but it's, 1.5 to $2 for a very first test, because on the starting, the budgets are very small. The targeting is broad, right? Almost everybody in US. So the CPIs will be lower. So yeah, something around $2 would be fine.
Nice. And so I'm really on the noob question, because I think I saw so many different things. But do you guys test on Android or on iOS? Do you advise to test on iOS because the user quality is better, but you won't have your CPI? What is your advice on this?
Yeah, so a lot of people prefer on Android because it's faster, but I hate Android because it's so random. It's so random. You just test same build with like different audience, like, and the retention numbers are crazy because everybody have different devices, different, everybody have different notches on them, performance levels. So yeah, on iOS you get that consistency. Okay, there are just few devices. Most people are on iPhone X or above, so you have just few devices to worry about and optimize your game, and the performance is generally good on even on like older devices. So we get the consistency of the retention numbers and play times, which is like the most important thing to see like if your game is good or not. So yeah, so we start our test actually on iOS, even though there's that crazy delay of like CPI, we can live with that.
I love it. And I think also it's really smart, because at the end of the day, we know like we are looking for a quality player, and this is what you get on iOS. We know like people revenue on iOS is usually higher than Android. Your target audience market is usually, of course, smaller, but at the end of the day, with higher LTV. So I think it's a really good and smart tip. Okay, so I really want to zoom out, because we are really lucky to speak to you today, because you are the founder of a studio. Can you tell us like why you created your studio, when, what motivated to do it, what is the size of the team? Tell us everything.
Yeah, so actually, I'm making games when I was like 12 or something, right? So I was underage. I was making game. I was making some money, so I was happy. So I actually dropped going through that like traditional education system because I wanted to become a full-time dev. So I actually became. I left my college, so I wanted to make games. So I was able to make good living out of it. And eventually, after you make some good living, you want to achieve big things, right? So then I started to slowly work with publishers. I actually, um, like when hyper casual started, I was like one of the first people who are making those hyper casual games. uh, I do have few games who reached few million downloads in hyper casual, which I built as a one person back then. So I did not had like any team. So eventually, when market moved on, I realized, okay, it's more like hybrid games now or casual. It will be very hard for me to make these games as a one person, at least for with that good quality. So then I slowly started to create a studio. So right now we are a small team. We're like 6 people, making these kind of casual games. Yeah, but we have bigger ambitions. Even though we're a small team, we slowly want to build up. Yeah.
I mean, you ask me, 6 people is a lot. Like, I mean, I just launched my society with Isdin. We are 2 people, 3 people. So I think you tell me 6 people, it's double. So it's already big. Or did you shift the resources? Like, do you have more dev, programmer, artist? what are you guys doing? Do you have different hats? Are you even hands-on, or what is your day to day?
Yeah, so because when you are small, you are wearing multiple hats. So we have like three developers, two artists, and I'm the sixth person working. So, but because I have experience of making games as a dev, I can also design games. I have a little bit of experience in user acquisition and monetization too. So my role is to come up with ideas, do market research, because not every developer is like aware of how market is going, and also they're not well suited to look it from like a top down view because they're very much nerdy working on the games. So I help them come up with ideas and finalize those ideas. If they need some sort of help with the design or like a play testing or taking like the hard decisions of killing games and these kind of stuff, I do these kind of things. But yeah, I can help them whenever they need in any kind of like domain of the development, testing, and I also handle the business side, publisher developer relationship, all that kind of stuff. So multiple hands.
Nice. We are speaking a lot about the puzzle games because it's one of the genres that is still growing, generating revenue. I think Royal Match is one of those, that is still making our market kind of look good. What are you seeing on your test? Is it like more difficult than before to have the KPIs? Is it more difficult to sign up with a publisher, or is the situation for you right now?
Honestly, the getting like the engagement KPIs like retention and playtime is not that hard because we know these kind of mechanics work. And even if we add innovation smartly, we don't change too much rules. We just add like a twist so the game looks fresh, it feels fresh, and when you advertise, users are like, oh, this looks interesting, I'm familiar with this thing, but it looks different and fresh. So we don't innovate too much. We also are not cloning, we're like in the middle, balancing things. So getting engagement KPIs is easy. The marketability is slightly tough, right? Because a lot of privacy changes and all that kind of stuff affected it. So marketability is kind of a tricky part. Yeah, but engagement also depends on the team quality. So because the understanding of the genre and the ability to build good games, the marketability is like half in our hands because we also add a lot of creativity into our ads and trying to make them fun and interesting. But there is also that other part that is not controlled by us, like these privacy changes and how the algorithms work on the ad networks. So that kind of stuff. So the marketability is a little challenging, but it depends per game. Generally what happens is either you have a good marketability and terrible stats, or great stats. So yeah, so, so one side is always strong and the other one is weaker.
Yes, and actually, something that is coming up a lot, especially on puzzle, is the community. We know with Merge Mansion, it was big, like all the community that came out, all the PvP games like Match Masters and so on are playing a lot on it. So, do you think in 90 days it's something that you have time to focus on and you should focus on, or it's something that will come after the 90 days?
Like what kind of things we would add to the game after 90 days? Like 60 days?
I mean, like building a community, Discord, even I think the user feedback at the end of the day
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
to
yeah. Yeah. So these kind of things. So obviously, what we were discussing for now was like that early testing of the game within the market to see if it's worth or not. Then comes like a soft launch, and then comes like the proper launch. So these kind of community things, going with influencers, building like one-on-one relationships with customers, if our game is very strong. These things do come later, like in that launch phase, global launch phase, because there are a lot of things to do prior to that. Like even soft launch can be chaotic, right?
100%. I mean, especially at the beginning. So I have a question, last but not least, because I think I was super curious because you brought a lot of good information on the table. So looking ahead, what do you envision as a future of rapid game development within existing game, and how do you plan to adapt and evolve your approach accordingly?
Yeah, so these methodologies will depend on the studio. I mean, if somebody have like a 500 million in their bank account, they should spend 2 years, 3 years on a game. They shouldn't. They should not be doing it our way, right? But if you don't have it, you cannot just put the fate of your studio on just one game. If that doesn't work, everything is done, right? There's nothing you can do after that. So it really depends on the kind of financial backing that studio have. That's like the first thing. And second thing is, even though even big studios and publishers, what they can do is they can try to get slightly more leaner, and they are getting slightly more leaner with their development cycles, because the times are slightly tougher as they used to be. So they are doing risk mitigation. But there are good things to be learned from both sides, right? So if for rapid development, it teaches you, if something is not working, either pivot or just drop it. Don't stick to it for too long, right? But on the other side, when you spend a lot of time in development and in soft launch, what you do is you give your idea enough time to flourish. You give it enough time to be improved, and game development can can be good when it's extended, because sometimes you have like a creative fatigue. Maybe in 6 months you find a really nice twist to it, or really nice pivot to it, because it's quite a long time. You have evolved, you have learned a lot about your product. You can do thousands of A/B tests if you have a lot of budget to improve that game, right? But yeah, so both sides have a very strong arguments how things should be done. You should do it according to your own studio and your own circumstances, according to the experience of the team, the financial backing, all that kind of stuff. So the decision is up to the studio management. But yeah.
100%. And I mean, we saw it, Quali, Sign, Text Express, Quali, which was originally Hyper Casual Studio as well. So I think, like the core method is really challenged. I saw also like Zynga, the pre-launched Game of Thrones match 3. Let's see how it goes. I think it was a really expensive game development. Let's compare both at the end of the day with some block jam games that made really well on the market, and see where is the value. I think you said it like it's the best of both worlds. It's not one or the other. It's what is your goal, what are your resources, and how to make the more money, because we are still we still need to live, right? Faisal, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for coming. How can we help you? Where can we reach you? And what is the next stage for your studio?
Yeah. So I'm mostly active on the LinkedIn. So maybe you can add LinkedIn somewhere in the description. Um, or if you want to hit me on email, then it's like Faisal at 8great.games. In terms of the studio direction, we do want to launch a really nice sized game. That's like the goal for the studio. And once we do that, then we'll see after that. Because for now, that's like the goalpost. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Thank you, Faisal, for having been with us. It was a really, really interesting interview about behind the scene of a 6-month development process. Thanks a lot for coming, and see you soon in Puzzle Society. Bye
Thanks a lot.
bye. It was Puzzling Perspective, a podcast by Puzzle Society. You made it to the end. Don't hesitate to subscribe, share it on LinkedIn, and don't hesitate to, if you want to participate, reach out. See you soon in Puzzle Society. Knowledge for all to grow again.